right, everybody. Brian Stevens here over at Mortgage Shops. Got a couple of things we want to share with you today. Now, of course, if you're watching this, make sure you put your comments down below. We want to hear what you have to say. Give us great show ideas. Tell us you think what we're doing is great. Tell us you think you hate it. Whatever you want to tell us. But put your comments down below. And, of course, share our information because it takes time to create all this content. And if you like what we're doing for you, when you hit that share button, we see it over here, and it makes a big difference in what we're doing. And, of course, just go to mortgageshops.com, subscribe, and you'll get our daily video. All dolled up and everything for you. Okay, so today I had a very, very inflammatory subject line over here saying that we effed vets once again. Bravo. Bravo. Well, of course, I know that that's going to be a little clickbaity-ish, and it's going to get some people's attention, but you know what? In fact, it's just true. And of all the different conversations we're having that are taking place in the real estate industry right now, this certainly isn't one of them that we're talking about. So I want to jump in and talk about some of this with you folks. As I said before, with real estate commissions, we've taken them out of the light and we put them in the back alley. Now, I got to tell you, I told you guys this yesterday, that nowhere in any of this settlement is there a discussion about the 6% commission. It's not the commission that's a problem here. What the problem is how we're getting to that commission that's being paid. Kind of like if I go and I sue you, and then I say, hey man, but I need you to pay for my lawyer to sue you. You'd be like, I'm not paying for your lawyer. Well, that's kind of what's happening in real estate. But here's the reality. See, the problem is we're having a disconnect between the reality of our situation, the ridiculous piles and piles of legacy policy that we have in the real estate and lending community, and none of it is ever undone. All we do is build on top of it. We don't get rid of it. We just build on top of it. So what happens when some of our policies of today are not copacetic with our policies of yesterday? What if our rules and regulations today create unintended consequences? Well, they're going to create unintended consequences because, again, we don't take anything away. All we do is continue to add. Like, let's say that you have a cake and you say, well, it needs a pinch of salt, but you put a little too much salt in. Now it's just salty. It's a salty cake. You going to eat that cake? No. Well, let's just say, all right, I'm just going to add some more sugar to offset the salt. Well, now you got too much sugar in your cake and it's going to be runny. Well, maybe I just need to add more flour to my cake in order to offset the sugar, which is offsetting the salt. Okay, well, now it's not sticking together. Okay, so now I'm going to add an egg so it sticks together to offset the extra flour, to offset the sugar, to offset the salt. You see what I'm saying? Eventually, you just don't have a bigger cake, you just have crap. And this is kind of what's taking place with policy. And that's exactly where the unintended consequences are with vets. But a couple of things I want to talk to you before we get to that. I spoke about this yesterday. Affordable housing is going to get a boost by House passages of the Tax Relief Act. Okay, so the Tax Relief Act, it sounds good. It's here in time for the election cycle, so this could be a talking point for our politicians. They're going to say, I supported the housing tax program, helping all these words that they use that are absolute paper dragons. The low income housing tax credit. Boy, that sounds good, doesn't it? Low income, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. Well, that low income tax credit, what does it do? It's going to give you $400 next year. $400. Is that a boost? Is $400 truly a boost? That's what you're going to get from this. So you see, we've created this massive, massive tax credit, this Relief Act, and it's all a paper dragon. But it's going to exist. It's going to sit here on the books. And again, it looks like it's going to be something that's going to take an enormous amount of money. They're going to expand innovation and competitiveness with pro-growth economic policies like research and development. Let me ask you this. Do you think that we haven't already passed something that talked about pro-growth, innovation, and R&D? We're passing this stuff all the time. All right, so great. We're going to get all this great stuff coming from it. Who's going to pay for it from this tax break? And have we not passed it before? And why did the last R&D and innovative and competitive pro-growth economic policy that you put in place, why didn't that work? Why do we need another one? How many times are we going to end homelessness? How many times are we going to get vets off the street? Why didn't the last bill work? Why do we need another one? If the last 15 bills to help vets didn't work, why is the 16th going to be the better one? And the truth is, it's not. And the truth is, we're going in the wrong direction. As I've said before, this is true. This is what they're going to do. They're going to fix our communities that were struck by disaster areas. Okay? This is happening right before our eyes. Okay. If they're going to rebuild our communities that were struck by disaster areas, and we're going to do this through housing, then riddle me this one, Batman. Why in the hell did farmers just pull 100,000 policies out of the state of California? If you can't get an insurance policy on that property that you're getting a loan against, a federal loan, the same people who are passing this thing, they're the ones who put in place that you can't get a loan if you don't have insurance. Going in the wrong direction. And by the way, just real quickly, Farmers Insurance Affiliates drops 100,000 customers in the state of California. The letter states that his auto insurance is going to expire in May and will not be renewed. The reason is that, quote, the insurer no longer offers insurance here in the state of California. Well, ain't that grand? By the way, do you want to know why they don't offer insurance in the state of California? Do you know why every insurer has fled the state of California? It's because we burn down every summer. We do. We'll get flood problems out here, but man, do we burn down. I spoke about this yesterday. So not only are we not fixing the problem, the problem is getting decidedly more complicated. And if you say, oh, this is just a California issue, no, it's not. This is a California issue. This is a Florida issue. This is a Texas issue. This is a Colorado issue. This is a Washington. This is Oregon. This is Idaho. It's all across the country. All of our natural disasters are making it to the point where the policies that we have in place for our insurance companies to where they could no longer be affordable. You got a 20-year-old kid, you want to go get him insurance on that new car, doesn't have any accidents, doesn't have anything on him, go try to get him insurance right now. I mean, there was something like my kid's insurance was like $600 a month. 24 years old, never had a ticket, never had no problems. It was more expensive than a car payment would have been for him. It's not that he can't afford the car, he can't afford the insurance. And without the insurance, he can't have the car. That's what's happening in housing in California. Does this hurt vets? You bet your ass it hurts vets, but this isn't the reason why I called you here today. I'm just showing you the unintended consequences of the policies that we put in place. Everything is in our ecosystem, and any one action, any one policy is going to affect other policies. But let's get back to our story at hand here real quick. Here's another one. The senators urged the Department of Justice to investigate FICO over increased cost in mortgage lending. I thought this was kind of ironic. Or is, what was it Robin Williams said in that movie Patch Adams? Ironical. I found this very ironical. Do you want to know why things are getting more expensive in mortgage lending? Because the policies that the senator who is urging the DOJ to investigate is passing bills and passing legislation that's putting a burden on lenders to charge more money. The senator doesn't need to go to the DOJ to investigate this whole thing. The senator needs to take a look at his actions and the actions of his constituents, and he'll find the reason why mortgage lending has gotten more expensive. You've made this thing a mess. You've made this thing an absolute mess. You've made it expensive. We have whole divisions in mortgage companies that simply didn't exist before, all in the name of consumer protection. And what it's done is it's made it more expensive for consumers, and it's made the whole thing take longer. And if you ask me, with all these CDs and disclosures that we have to put out, it's made it more confusing. It's just noise. And what has happened with our set of loan documents? Anybody who's been in this business for any length of time will be able to tell you this one's an easy one. 25 years ago, our set of loan docs was this thick. Now our set of loan docs is this thick. And so answer me this. If you've got 1 hour to review your documents, if you have 1 hour to digest a book, just 1 hour where you're going to spend your time, are you going to be able to understand a Dr. Seuss book that's got 14 pages? Or are you going to be able to understand War and Peace by Tolstoy, which has got 2,000 pages? Which one, if you had to understand it, which one is going to give you the better opportunity to understand their message? It's Dr. Seuss. You got 14 pages. You have Sneetches with stars on their bellies. You have Sneetches who don't have stars on their bellies. And then the Sneetches with no stars want to get the stars. And then once they have the stars, the Sneetches with stars don't want the ones on theirs. And then they keep going back and forth, only to realize that it doesn't matter if you have a star on your belly or not. The moral to the story is we're all the same. Pretty easy to digest in about 5 minutes. And what a great message it is, right? If we turn that into War and Peace, not so easy. That's what we've done with our loan docs. That's what we've done with all of our policies. But it's pretty interesting that the senator actually has the audacity to go and say, I want the DOJ to invest this because I'm concerned about the cost for consumers. Well, hey, jackass, just look at what you've done. Take a look at what you've done. It'll become very apparent very quickly why things have gotten more expensive. Now let's move over to the vets right now and let me explain to you where I'm coming from. We have a long, rich history of grandstanding about veterans in this country. A long, rich history of grandstanding. Let me tell you a story. That's a true story too. So there was a company that was called Nehemiah. Some of you might remember it. Nehemiah was the biblical figure who built houses, I believe it was. So there was this program called Nehemiah, and it was a down payment assistance program that HUD always hated. One, because they didn't have to pay for it, and two, because it worked. And it was effective. What they basically did with Nehemiah is they allowed Peter to rob Paul. So what would happen is because we would be able to essentially illegally allow a seller to pay for the down payment and the closing costs for a buyer. Well, then the buyer doesn't have skin in the game. HUD says we don't like the fact that they don't have skin in the game. And there's no legal way to do it because it goes against our policies. It goes against our guidelines because according to HUD, they're 41, is it the 4155? Did I get that one right? When you go into their guidelines, it says it right there. Okay, seller cannot pay for the down payment for the buyer. Okay, got it. Unless it's a family members. Okay, got it. Got it. But what we did was we said, okay, so what's going to happen is the seller is going to give 7% to this nonprofit organization, who then in a completely separate and mutually exclusive action is going to give 6% from this nonprofit organization over to the buyer. One doesn't have anything to do with the other. Just coincidentally, the seller is going to donate $6,000 to a 7% to a nonprofit. And strangely, oddly, somehow, some coincidence, 6% is going to end up with a buyer of that person's house, and they're going to use it for their down payment and closing costs, and everybody's happy. Yet, it went against HUD's policy, right? So HUD fought this, and they finally got rid of Nehemiah. So Nehemiah found themselves sitting on a boatload of money. If I take 7 and give 6, and I'm doing 10,000 transactions per month, I've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, one of the guys who used to work with me, he went and started working at Nehemiah because it was down the street. He started working at Nehemiah, though, when Nehemiah no longer had a product to peddle. HUD shut him down. So Nehemiah is sitting on hundreds of millions of dollars. They don't know what to do with this stuff. He literally sat in the office and didn't do anything, taking a check for a couple of years. Had nothing to do, no product to sell. Sorry, we have no more burgers and fries, but we're going to keep McDonald's open. So somewhere in the process, Nehemiah figured out that they could go ahead and get foreclosed homes from the Bank of Americas of the world, some of the larger lenders in the world. And what they would do is they would then take their money, they would fix these houses up, and they would sell these properties to vets at below market cost. So let's say the house would appraise at $300,000, they would sell it for $200,000 to a vet. Now, it was still profitable for Nehemiah because they were getting a lot of these houses free from Bank of America, of Wells Fargo, and the large big block lenders out there who had tons and tons of them. So it was good for everybody. And then what they would do is they would actually give a home away to a vet when they raised enough money. So you either got a house below market value or you got a house free and clear. Killer deal. So I was talking with my buddy on this, and I said, "How's it going over there?" And he goes, "I'll tell you what, the hardest thing to do." He goes, "You're going to find this hard to believe." He goes, "It's finding vets to give homes away to." I go, "That's impossible." He goes, "It's harder to do than you think," because they were giving these homes to vets who suffered some type of, more or less, they had some type of, wounded in action, or they had a severely handicapped family member and were in dire straits looking for money. So I was talking with him, and we were sitting down, and he goes, "I'm giving a house away to a vet right now, giving it away." And I go, "Are you serious?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm going to give it to him right now." He goes, "We picked this person over here. He had a daughter who had a lot of needs, and he was working 2 jobs, busted his ass, doing everything right, served in the Army and the Air Force, served in multiple theaters. This guy was a vet. This guy was a hero, a word that gets passed around very easily but applies to very few. This guy was a hero." And so I said, "Hey man, can I call him and tell him?" He goes, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Can I do it? Would you let me?" He goes, "Yeah, you can do it." I said, "So you're calling him right now and just telling him he just got a house free and clear?" "Yep." And they dolled these houses up. They had to have nice flowers out front because they were calling the media, and the media would come out and they'd make a big stink about this whole thing. So I called this vet up and I told him, I said something to the effect of, I said, "Hey man, I got some good news and I got some bad news for you." I said, "The bad news is," and I made something really silly. And very, very quickly, I said, "The great news is, dude, the house that you had applied for, it's yours. They've decided that you're the person who should have this." And it just freed up an enormous amount of money. His living expense went to nothing. And it allowed him to do the things that he needed to do as a father, as a vet, for his child. It made a world of difference to him. It was, in my life, one of the most profoundly impactful moments. I could get teared up just thinking about this. It was amazing what these guys were doing. So I started talking with them about these vets, and I said, "Hey," I go, "So how is it possible that it's hard to find vets?" He goes, "Where do you find them?" I said, "I think you'd find them anywhere." He goes, I think he said something like, where we find them most are like these veteran motorcycle groups." He goes to these veteran motorcycle groups that are in a lot of communities, and then puts the word around, and then they go find folks that would be eligible for these properties. He goes, "That works." I go, "Why don't you just call the damn VA? Like, call the VA." And this is the exact same time when vets were arguing a few years back. Some of you remember this, when you had vets who were like dying at the administration office in the hospitals because they couldn't see a doctor. I mean, it was absurd, like how horrible we were to vets with their medical eligibility and the care that they got. I mean, it was an embarrassment. I mean, not surprising, right? So I said, so you called the VA, right? He goes, yeah, we called the VA a whole bunch of times. I go, what happens to the VA? He goes, they never respond. I said, you are a certified, recognizable nonprofit giving homes away, very trackable on every local news station, and the VA is not doing anything for you. Absolutely nothing. And he goes, yeah. And I said, oh, okay. I said, I can't believe this. So I called Dave Stevens when he was the head of the Mortgage Bankers Association. I explained to him the story, and he goes, oh my God. He goes, this is an embarrassment. I said, it is. Something like that. So Dave Stevens got on the horn with some people, and what happened is one of the biggest lenders out there, one of these banks, big banks, think of the biggest banks in the country, and it's one of them. Okay, commercials, all that's the banks, the biggest banks in the country. Like there's a bank in America, right? Right? We got a lot of banks in America, don't we? And what they said was, we are going to quit participating with this loan program with you because now we've shed light that it's hard to get the VA to communicate with some of these injured vets and give them the opportunity to apply and work within this program, which was a huge, huge benefit for them. Their solution was to shut the damn thing down. I swear to God, that was the solution. It's kind of like if you get an ingrown fingernail. Well, if you just chop your whole arm off, you'll never get an ingrown fingernail again. That's the type of thought processing that went into this whole thing. I couldn't believe it. It's like I had actually done something that was not going to work to the vet's advantage. Yet that's where we were. And here, if you go to the VA site, I just went to the VA site today. You're looking at this. The VA housed more than 46,000 home vets in 2023. And listen, great. Bravo. That's good. This is really good. It ain't enough, but it's good. Now, what I want to tell you guys about is this. Here's the truth of the matter. In real estate, there's a misconception about VA home loans. I got friends all across the country who spend an enormous amount of time. I'm going to talk with one of them, Michael Fisher. Michael Fisher probably knows more about this topic than any loan officer in the country. Michael Fisher has probably educated more loan officers and more real estate agents in this country, explaining the benefit and why real estate agents should in fact look at VA offers, and why they not only do it because you ought to do it. You have a chance to give your property to a vet or me, give it to a vet. But he was explaining all the benefits and the misconception about VA loans. But I'll tell you this right now, you'd find a whole bunch, you'd go into any of these board meetings and you would find, I just spoke with Joanna about this, you'd find real estate agents standing up at these board meetings saying, please, 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 let me at least put an offer in. Let me put an offer in. Will you just please look at my VA offer? There's a lot of agents who are listing properties that we don't need to, so we're not going to look at VA deals right now. We all know about that part. But now I want you to think about what's just taken place over the past couple of days. Well, now the real estate agents can't put their commissions into their MLS. We are going to provide a fee to the real estate agent who brings the winning offer to my listing. If somebody has a client and they've procured that client and they've marketed to get that client, they've showed that client a million houses and they've had all the millions of different shrink type of conversations you have with your client, as a real estate agent often does, then after all of that time, they finally took them, they took them to your house when it came on the market because they said, I think I just found exactly what my clients are looking for, took it to your house. They counseled their clients, listen, this is going to have 15 offers on it today. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's already a built-in misconception about VA home loans, but we are going to overcome these misconceptions about VA home loans because I took Michael Fisher's class and I know how to navigate these waters because I'm a professional. And then the seller looked at that VA offer and said, yep, this is the best offer for me. And that buyer's agent did their job. I, as a seller, would feel pretty damn good about giving that agent a commission because that agent, one, showed me the way of getting a vet into my house, which is going to make me feel better about things, and two, brought me the best offer. That agent did their job, right? Well, we can now no longer do that. You're going to go on your listing appointment, and in the back alley dealings, in the shadows, we're going to have to figure out what we can do with commissions now. We're already starting to see this. No commissions are being offered. But here's the thing. That veteran cannot pay for representation. Can a VA buyer pay a commission? No. What does a VA prohibit buyers from doing? Real estate attorney's fees. VA buyers right now are not able to pay for compensation for their real estate agent to have representation when they're a buyer. In the past, that has been paid for by a seller's offering a compensation. With these new rule changes, that isn't guaranteed anymore. Now, Okay, I can already hear Michael saying, well, Brian, you're missing some things here. And yeah, I am missing some things here. But I'll tell you what we just did. We just took that vet's ability to go get representation and buy a house, and we just made it a shit ton more difficult. We screwed them when we didn't need to. Now, I'll tell you this. I get it. You don't want real estate agents to get paid for what they do, which I find absurd. You go get a coffee, you want the barista to get paid. You go buy a car, you want your salesperson to get paid. You want everyone else to get paid. You want to get paid for what you do for a living, but for some reason, we've just decided that we don't want real estate agents to get paid anymore. And the reality of the situation is 75% of the people, especially low-income and underserved communities, who don't have the reserves to pay for that representation will no longer have that opportunity. They won't have that opportunity to have that representation. But in the case of the VA home loan, they're not even allowed to. Do you want to know why? Because the VA is following NAR. VA was following NAR and the guidelines for buying and selling real estate for the past umpteen decades. And they put policies in place that they thought would be an inordinate benefit to our veterans to lower their fees and lower the cost of acquiring a house. But for better or for worse, that's what the idea was. And you see these policies are still in place. But just like my analogy I gave you with the cake, all we're doing is adding more sugars, salt, starch, eggs. We don't have a bigger cake. We got a pile of junk. How does that make you feel? I think it kind of sucks. Yet this is where we're at. We applaud the idea that we got rid of commissions. We applaud, and every news station is running with this. It is unbelievable. I told you, I was looking at CNN and said the day of the 6% commission is gone. It's the very first line of the very first article they did right after this whole settlement came out with NAR a couple of days ago. And the thing was, is that was patently incorrect. That was intellectually dishonest, what they did. And there's no way that they didn't know. There's no way that they couldn't know. Any journalist, there is no journalistic integrity in that article if the first line says, the days of the 6% commission are gone. The 6% commission wasn't here. Now, but I said yesterday, there's brokers who, there are brokers who mandated this. I told you about one right in my backyard. You're a new agent, you get a listing at 6% or you ain't listing that house. Well, that seems like a little collusion, doesn't it? And it was. And should that broker be busted? Sure. Go after them. Go after that broker. But you see, if my brother kills somebody, don't throw me in jail. I didn't kill anyone. You can't go ahead and prosecute an entire industry for the actions of a few. That doesn't make any sense. Yet that's exactly what we've done. And as a consequence, we have put our veterans behind the 8 ball with their VA benefit. This is a veteran's benefit. We just took that away. We just made it more difficult. We just complicated this. We just muddied waters. I'll tell you right now, there's going to be veterans who do not get their offer accepted, not because it's not the best offer, but because it's a veteran's loan. And there's going to be veterans out there right now who want to get into the home ownership game so they could build equity, so they could provide for their family, and they're going to go try to buy a house, and they're going to do it without representation, and they're going to be up against a real estate agent who's been selling real estate for 20 years, and that real estate agent is going to do exactly what they're supposed to do. They're going to do exactly what their legal and moral obligation is, their fiduciary. They're going to try to take that vet to the cleaners. Vet doesn't have any representation here. I have a legal and moral obligation to my seller. It's a rigged game. I got a junior varsity player over in the pros here trying to make the cut. You know what happens with a junior varsity player who tries to make the cut? The pros, they get slaughtered. But this is what's going to happen. An unintended consequence from NAR folding up and not representing its agents anymore. One of the unintended consequences are the vets pay the price. And who else pays the price? Well, on your HUD loans too, our FHA deals, those would be our non-vet underserved communities. That's a mission statement over at HUD, isn't it? To serve the underserved? That's their mission statement. Well, guess what? Just made it harder. They're not getting representation either. Just made it worse for poor people, minority communities, underserved communities when it comes to getting representation. That's the cold, hard facts. The only thing that we can hope right now is real estate agents do exactly what we didn't want them to do in the first place, and that's go in the back alley and carve out a solution to this, because according to NAR, that's perfectly fine. We can only hope that they do what nobody thinks they should do. That's the solution, and that, my friends, is exactly where we're at right now. No and no. Pretty clear. I'll tell you what I'm thinking about doing, and I want to know what you think about this, guys. I'm thinking about, I said this before. I think if I was a real estate agent and I was representing somebody who was a seller, I would feel obligated. I would feel in order to fulfill my fiduciary to that client, I would need to let that client know exactly what's going on. I would want to tell that client, I would tell my client, you want to know something? Here's the truth of the matter. I don't care what anyone says. Here's human nature to Brian Stevens. If you don't offer a commission to a real estate agent who has buyers, they're probably not going to show your house. Are they supposed to? Yeah. Are they all going to do it? No, they're not. If you're You're not going to pay them. Why should they? Or they're going to go in there and try to negotiate a commission. That's going to be the most awkward thing on the face of the planet. I'm going to say, I'll tell you what, here's what I think. I believe in human nature more than anything else. I know what people do. I know that everyone's struggling for a dollar right now. And I know that there's going to be agents out there who aren't going to show property. So here's what I would do if I were you. Do you want to sell your house as fast as possible for top dollar? I'd offer a commission. If you don't offer a commission, you save 3% or 2%, whatever it is. $400,000, you save $8,000. Okay, but now you got a smaller pool of people who are looking at your house. And I'll tell you, if you get these people who are coming and they don't have representation, guess what? They have no clue about what houses are worth. And they're going to come in here and thinking that this is a time to go ahead and play games. That's what I do. If I'm buying a house, well, I can offer whatever I want. They want $400,000, fuck it, I'll offer them $200,000. Why not? They might take it. No, they're never going to take that because their agent's going to tell them that's a crap deal and not even look at it. I know they need to present it and all that, but you're going to start getting more shit offers from buyers who don't know how the game works. You don't want that. Offer a commission, you don't have to deal with that crap. Okay? That's going to be the first part of it. Then the second part of it is that person's going to come in there, they're going to make an offer, and if they get that winning bid on it, and if for some reason a year, 2 years down the road, they feel like they got taken to the cleaners, guess what? Your agent just put themselves in a much more litigious situation. They don't have the money for it. And what do we want to do? We want to help people who need help. We want to help underserved communities. So are there going to be lawyers ready, lined up to go ahead and sue listing agents? You bet your ass they are. I'm sure they've already thought of it. If not, congratulations, give me my finder's fee. Just the next round of lawsuits, after these lawsuits are done, sue the listing agents. Sue the brokers over the listing agents for taking advantage of clients who have no representation. So this is going to happen over at HUD. Unless they do, like I said, exactly what we want them not to do. So in closing here, real estate agents, here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking about putting together a list. And I want to see if you agents would sign this list. My list is going to say something like this. I agree with this such and such group. I believe as a listing agent that I have to fulfill my legal and moral obligation, my fiduciary to my seller. And I'm going to, in the course of my conversations, let them know that offering a commission to the agent who brings the winning bid to my house is going to put them in a better position to fulfill what their needs and wants are, which is to get top dollar for the property. Something like that. And then as an agent, if you agree with it, you can have that designation. You can be a part of our little club. Now, my thinking is that then what you should do is go to that list and find out how many other agents agree with you. And these will be the ones where you're going to probably have your commissions on properties. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to do that, but I think that's what we're talking about, isn't it? Isn't that where we're at right now? Because as a listing agent, I don't want to go back doors. I don't want to go into the shadows of the alleys behind the buildings and sit over there and try to figure out how we can collude and create a commission. No, I think I'd want to be straightforward about my legal obligation. I have a legal obligation to my client right now, and part of that legal obligation is going to be my counsel. And all I'm doing is telling you, the world, what I'm going to do. I'm going to be transparent. I'm going to be so transparent that anybody who's looking at me as a potential real estate agent on that transaction, they're going to know going into that interview process exactly where I stand. Now, you don't have to offer a commission. You certainly don't, but you're going to know what your agent's counsel is. And as a buyer or a seller, that's all we can ask for, isn't it? Why wouldn't we do something like that? Let's create a list. Let's go get a national register of all real estate agents who agree with this. I don't know. It's food for thought. 100% more confusing. 27 years in the mortgage. It's never been more convoluted and harder to understand for our borrowers. Darn right. Dodd-Frank, the Patriot Act, and the CFPB. Yep, made this all a lot easier to understand. So anyways, this is just food for thought. And with your when you're listening to the talking points of your elected officials going into this election cycle, I want you to think about those veterans, okay? I want you to think about where we're at with real estate right now. And DOJ, they want to go out there. We have our senators out there grandstanding saying we want to know why mortgages have gotten more expensive. No brainer. Walk into any mortgage company, look at what their payroll was 20 years ago. Look at what their payroll is now. You'll find it. It's all there. It's hiring people to fulfill the obligations that you put in front of them. You want to find out? It's pretty easy. When you take a loan package and you make it 50 papers and you make it 600 pages, those other 550 pages, they all have a legal backing and mandates that need to be accounted for. I've got to staff up for that. I need to hire technology experts. I need to hire coders. I need to get more servers. I need to get more receptionists. I need to retrain my entire team. I need to go get educated. They're all the things that I need to do. I'm not saying it's all bad, guys, but I'm saying right now what we need to do is overhaul the whole damn thing from the ground up. But when we think of how long it took to deal with TRID, I'm telling you right now, doesn't sound very likely, because that's not the way Washington, D.C. functions. Anyways, my friends, think about our vets. Agents out there, reach out to Michael Fisher. He's great with this stuff. He can help you out with your VA knowledge set to help navigate these waters. I'm going to be doing an interview with him sooner than later, and I want to know what his insight is to help our vets who just got shafted as a result, a byproduct of this NAR settlement. So when I find that information out, of course, I'm going to bring it to you as quickly as humanly possible. With that said, my friends, you guys all have a great weekend. Formula One tomorrow down in Australia. Boom, 9 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Check it out. Verstappen has already won the first 2 races. Pole position on the first 2 races. Really fun crap. My daughter likes it, and I'm all about Formula One this year. With that said, my friends, you guys make it a great day.